confessions for the day. So, I'm really thankful to be here, and I know that I'm a poor substitute for Pastor Tim, but I will do my best to bring you something that will enrich and inspire you and hopefully give you something to take with you this week. We're going to continue along with our series, The Guardrails, and of course, guardrails do two things. They keep us from falling over the cliff, and they keep us on the right road. And today we're going to talk about friendships and how they do that. And you know, I thought this would be really a terrifically warm and fuzzy message, but the truth of the matter is this message isn't warm or fuzzy at all. And this is where God has kind of brought me. You know, since the last 10, 15 years, the word friend or friendship has really been dumbed down. And I think that has a lot to do with social media, don't you? You know, they're my friend on Facebook. I follow you on Instagram. I like what you do. I unfriended you because you said something I didn't. And because of the dumbing down of friendship, we've also dumbed down the expectation of what we should be as a friend and what we expect others as a friend. And so, quite honestly, we've allowed people on social media to speak in our lives that we've never met. We've argued with people that we've never seen. And we've allowed other people's opinions to affect us when they don't have any right to speak into our lives. And so, quite honestly, friendships can be some of our greatest guardrails. But honestly, they can be the very vehicle that pushes us over the cliff if we don't choose correctly. Now, there was a whole lot of scripture today, so I wrote out something. I will talk about some of them, but some of them I probably won't reference as I'm talking. And as you can see by the list, I'm pretty obsessed with Proverbs. I love Proverbs. So I'm going to start with the 4 C's of friendship. The first one, companion. Okay? A companion is for you. They want the best for you. And if we're lucky in our world, we will have 10 to 20 companions throughout the course of our life. Now, they may be the same, they may be different. Sometimes companions come and go. And I like the analogy that I heard one time about flowers. Some friendships are perennials, and they come up year after year. And some are annuals. But they're there for a reason and a purpose, and that doesn't make them any less important. So, the first C is companionship. What is a companion? They're constant in your life. A friend loveth at all times. What does all time mean? Doesn't mean every day, even every month, even every year. It means you're there for the blessings, you're there for the tragedies. You're there for the mountaintop, you're there for the lowness. You're there when you're really messed up, and they're there when you're getting an award from the moral majority. Okay? They're there for you. They're also available. Okay? They're available. You can't expect support if you aren't being supportive. You can't expect attention if you haven't been attentive. If you've never made a deposit into someone, you can't expect a withdrawal. So a companion is constant. Number 2, a companion counsels you. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. I counseled a girl several years ago that I would definitely say is my companion now. She was a mom that was going through a divorce and had a couple children, and I could relate to that because I'd been through that previously many years ago. And it stands as one of my greatest blessings, the opportunity to counsel her and to see her now doing so well and her children doing so well. And about 6 months ago, I saw her and she gave me a hug and she said, "You changed the trajectory of my whole life." How What an honor and what a blessing. Now, I don't say that to say, yay, Deb. But we all have things in our life. We all have opportunities. We all have skills or education or training or experience. And with all that comes wisdom that we can share and counsel and be a companion to someone. So a companion is constant. They counsel. They comfort and care for you. Mother Teresa says this about the care in the United States. She said, the greatest disease in the West, which is the U.S., today is not TB or leprosy. It is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. We can cure many physical diseases with medicine, but the only cure for loneliness, despair, and hopelessness is caring. There are many in the world who are dying and starving for a piece of bread, but there are many more that are dying for some comfort and some caring. The poverty in the United States is simply a different kind of poverty. It is a poverty of the soul. So a companion will comfort and care for you. And the last thing that a companion does is they're compassionate. And when I think of compassionate, I think of grace. Because to me, compassion equals grace. And grace finds you where you are, in the gutter, in the darkness, in the pain, in the heartache. But it doesn't allow you to stay there. Okay? Number 2, on the 4 C's of friendship, confidant. A confidant is for you also. It wants the best for you. And a confidant is everything that a companion is, plus 2. And the truth of the matter is, if you and I are blessed enough to have 2 or 3 of them in our whole entire lifetime, we are blessed indeed. A confidant will do 2 things. Number 1, they confront your junk. That's never fun, is it? They confront your junk. See, we don't like our junk to be confronted. Even in the church, we get offended when our junk is confronted. Okay, but what happens when we don't confront our junk is that then we get really comfortable in our junk. And once we get comfortable in our junk, then we name it. Or before, this is my first marriage. We've been married for about 2 years. My husband has had 2 affairs. We're in counseling right now. The counselor has said that he has a sexual addiction, and before she could get the words out, Dr. Laura said, your husband doesn't have a sexual addiction, he's a jerk. Well, at first I was kind of like, wow. But then I thought, you know what? She confronted. She didn't allow her to label it. She didn't allow her to settle in it. She confronted it. So a confidant, although it makes our bristles go up, confronts our junk. The next thing that a confidant does is it challenges you. It challenges the way you think. I just finished a book by Sheryl Sandberg. Sheryl Sandberg is the COO of Facebook. Her and her family were on this wonderful vacation in a tropical island, and they were all on the beach, and they were planning on dinner that evening. When dinner time came, let me step back, I'm sorry. Her husband decided mid-afternoon to go to the gym and work out before dinner. And when dinner time came, he wasn't around, and she went to look for him, and she found her 47-year-old husband dead on the gym floor. And the book I read was her process through the grief. Fast forward 6 months, and it's the father-daughter banquet dance at her daughter's school. And a friend was so gracious enough to say he would take her young daughter. And he looked very handsome, and her daughter looked beautiful, and Sheryl said she just fell apart. She cried and screamed and shook her fist in anger and said, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. Dave, or I think his name was Dave, is supposed to be here taking her. This is wrong. I'm not happy. She was crying, and her friend challenged her behavior and said, I agree. It's not fair. I don't like it any more than you do. But option A isn't available, so let's kick the crap out of option B. That's a friend who challenges you. That's a confidant. So a confidant does everything that a companion does, but it also confronts and it challenges. So confidants and companions have three things that will let you know that that's what they are also. Number one, they copy the actions of God, okay? They copy the behaviors of God, and as humans, we're not going to be perfect with that. But are you okay, Lou? Can you hear? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay.
Hearing aid is on way.
Okay. All right. So three things. A companion and a confidant will copy or imitate the roles and the behavior of God. Not perfectly, because we're human, but they will. The second thing that they'll do is they can be trusted with classified information, your secrets, right? A servant knoweth not what his master is doing. Instead, John 15:15, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friend. So a confidant and a companion would be trusted with your classified information. And the third thing that they do is that they will sacrifice for you. John 15:13 says, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. And of course, in this day and age, we don't need to lay down our lives for our friends, but we certainly can lay down our opinions. We can lay down our preferences. We can lay down our wanting to be correct. We can lay down our control. Number 3 of the 4 C's, constituents. Constituents are not for you. They're for what you're for, right? Athletes, they're not for that person. They're for what they can, they're for whatever, the Green Bay Packers. As the athletic director, if my philosophy agrees with what other people think, they're for me. And what happens is we often mistake confidants, or we often mistake constituents for confidants. But you have to realize that constituents, are fickle. They're fickle. And when you change your trajectory, they'll leave you in a quick second. Because the truth of the matter is, it's their agenda that they're after. They're a fan of yours as long as you are agreeing with their philosophies. In the athletic world, it's interesting to me that a family will be behind me if they agree with my philosophy with their one son or daughter. And if they're more, let's say, the very skilled one. And then we'll come along with one of their sons or daughters that's not quite as skilled. And pretty soon they're not a fan of me anymore because they don't agree with my philosophy, because their philosophy has changed because it works for them at that point. Does that make any sense? They're fickle. They're fickle. Fans love what you do, and friends love who you are. And we often get those mixed up. And the last C is comrades. Comrades aren't for us, and they aren't for what we're for, but they're for what we're against. I think we could see that in the election, couldn't we, a little bit? We gathered some comrades because we were against the other side. But what happens is when the battle is over and your common enemy has either won or has been defeated, you find that you have nothing left in common with a comrade. Constituents and comrades are really a fact of life. Doesn't mean they're bad. They're bad when we don't know what they are, because they can cause us great harm. For instance, if you share your classified information with a constituent or a comrade, they might not be trustworthy, and you can get some very hurtful things that happen. You know, Jesus is really careful, if you think about it in the Bible, of who he calls friends. Think about these numbers. He feeds and preaches to the 5,000, but he lays hands on the 70, and he teaches very privately to 12, but he only allows 3 in his inner circle. See, Jesus knew that you can't be everything for everybody. And sometimes, I hate to say it, in the church, we think we should be. We think that's our role. We think that's our job. And this is what happens. Let's think about a battery. A battery can do 3 things, right? If it's laying in my drawer, it's neutral. It's neutral. But if I have it plugged in, it's charging. It's receiving something, right? People can do that for us. Those are the mentors in our life. Those are the people that motivate us when we're around them. They invigorate us. They encourage us. They make us want to be a better person. At the same time, when I turn that flashlight on, what am I doing to the energy in that battery? I'm draining it, right? Those are the people in our lives that take something. And they're people that we love. Our spouses take something from us. Our children take something from us. So that's not necessarily a negative. Now, they've done studies on this, and if I would ask you guys to write down all the relationships in your life that are neutral, easygoing, ebb and flow, you would have several. You would have several. And then if you ask them to write down all the people that energize you and invigorate you and make you want to be a better person, you'd have 2 or 3 names. Most people would have 2 or 3 names only. And then if you would say, now I want you to write down all the names of people that take from you, you'll find that everybody's list is quite long. And what happens, just like with a battery, when it drains more than it charges, it dies, right? And when we have people that take more than we charge up, our soul gets compromised. And when our soul gets compromised, we make bad decisions. I know for a fact that when my soul is compromised, and it has been several times in this last year because we've had a heck of a year, I make a couple pretty basic decisions. I watch too much mindless television. I eat too many sweets. I don't exercise the way I should. And I drink way too much Mountain Dew. Okay? Why? Because I'm trying to fill that soul. So we have to be very careful. And if you think about it, Jesus was very careful who he let in and out of his life. Preached to the 5,000 and then went off by himself. Why? To be recharged. To be recharged. We have to have people in our life or things that charge us up. Because if we don't have what other people need, we can't give it to them. If Lester comes to me and says, Deb, can I get $20 from you? If I don't have $20, I can't give it to him. And if somebody comes looking for emotional support from me and I don't have it because I haven't charged and I've let the other people feed off of my energy, I can't give him what he needs. That happened in May. We've had a heck of a year. We almost lost Devin, and then Drake was diagnosed with Crohn's, and then I had a hospital stay, and then Zeke had a horrendous, he was in the hospital 30-some days in January. And in May, when he went back in to get rehooked from his colostomy, everything was going well, and I had just come in from the motel, and he was sharing with me that he had talked to one of our children, and they were in kind of a mini crisis. And I just lost it. I said, I can't do another crisis. I can't do it. And I went into the bathroom, and I laid on the shower floor in the hospital and sobbed because I knew that I didn't have enough charge in me to give my son what he wanted. What we need to do, we have to be very, very careful of who feeds from us. This is another thing, and Zeke and I are both guilty of this. Okay, we fill ourselves, and then we go out into the world, and we give all our energy to our constituents and our comrades. And then we come back to our family, and we have this much left. I think we'll answer for that someday. We have to be careful with our attention and our energy, and we have to be, I want to say, focused. We have to have vision of where that needs to go, just like Jesus did. You know, when I think about the story of Samson and Delilah, I think Samson was kind of the same way. Samson was a mighty warrior, right? Strong, winning battles. I would bet that Samson had a ton of fans, people that loved him for what he did. And I would say that Samson probably got mixed up and thought that they loved him. And I think what happened was he had more going out and not enough coming in, and his soul got compromised. And because his soul got compromised, we all know what happened. He lost his strength. He made a foolish decision and got involved with Delilah. So, I'm going to end with this. I'm going to talk about 4 things that a friend does not. And it's very quick. A friend does not criticize. Criticize is finding fault without finding a solution. Criticize makes me feel good if I'm criticizing somebody, okay? It makes me feel better about myself. So a friend does not criticize. A friend might confront, but confronting is confronting the issue, but then helping the person overcome the issue. Number 2, a friend doesn't compare. I just read the other day that there is no pride without comparison. Think about that. Pride is always, I am better at that than somebody else. So if there is no comparison, there is no pride. Number 3, a friend doesn't need to control. T.D. Jakes says, when proving yourself right is more important than the person you are proving it to, you might have some control issues. Think about that. When proving yourself right, and how many of us get on that bandwagon? I know I'm right. I know I'm right. If that's more important to you than the very person that you are trying to prove it to, you're not a friend. And the last one, compromise. Friend does not compromise. Winston Churchill says this about appeasers, and I think of an appeaser as a compromiser. Says that an appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile hoping it will eat him last. Yeah, think about that. An appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile hoping it will eat him last. So, I told you how much I love Proverbs. Proverbs is nothing more than a book of wisdom, okay? And we can look at all these things that I shared, and we can think of what people need to hear this, because I sometimes do that. Oh gosh, Zeke really needs to hear this today. All right? I have to be honest. I've thought that in the past. But we need to do 2 things. We need to look at where we're failing in our friendships, as a companion, as a confidant. We need to recognize the people in our lives and who they are and what they are. And we need to be focused and diligent with the energy that God has given us. And we have to make sure that we are putting it within the right people. Let's pray.